Hi, my name is Sarah Millie's Luck, and I wrote a thesis on Beaver Island and a renewable energy future. But instead of making you read it, I thought I'd clue you in on the case study of community solar in Lance, Michigan. This project was very successful, and there's a lot we can learn from it. So let's get started. Lance is a small town located in Michigan's Upper Peninsula on Lake Superior's Keweenaw Bay. It's a small rural community, similar to the one on Beaver Island, but currently proudly hosts a 110.5 kilowatt community solar array. The initial idea for a community solar program came from the village manager, but instead of ushering in an outside company to do the job, Lance officials reached out to Michigan Tech students and faculty to coordinate a research project to gauge public interest and design a program that would be built by and for the local community. I recently had the opportunity to virtually sit down with the professor in charge of the study, Dr. Rochelle Winkler, to discuss how the grassroots organization of the program made the Lance Community Solar Project so successful and how to follow in their footsteps. Let's listen in.
Yeah, so my name is Rochelle Winkler, and I'm a professor of sociology and demography at Michigan Technological University, where I work primarily on topics related to sustainable rural community development, and especially looking at interactions between population and environment and community well-being. And I teach and supervise students in a graduate program in environmental and energy policy. Nice. So that's where most of my work lies. So I was involved with the Community Solar Project in Lance, Michigan, because the village manager there is someone who I'd collaborated with in the past and he's actually taken courses with me at Michigan Tech. And he reached out to us because he had some interest in starting a community solar program, but he didn't really know where to start with regards to whether people in the community would want a program and whether they would buy shares, or even if it was technically feasible in this part of the country. You know, we get a lot of snow up here in the Keweenaw area and a lot of cloudy days. And just wanted to better understand the feasibility and then the public acceptance of it before trying to move forward to push some kind of a program in the community. And so he reached out to me, and I worked with more folks at Michigan Tech from a lot of different disciplines. We worked with engineers and students in the alternative energy enterprise who did a technical feasibility study. And then we worked more in the social sciences department with a group of students as well and faculty. And we collaborated with the Western UP Planning and Rural Development region as well to do the social side of the research to really better understand whether people wanted to do community solar, but not just that, also what they saw as some of the challenges and the opportunities or the risks that could be associated with it, whether people would buy shares of it. And we were really looking to understand how we could design a program that would really work for this particular community. 2,000 people live in Lance, and it's also home to the Keweenaw Bay Indian community, and about 9% of the people identify as American Indian. Also, in terms of thinking about energy in Lance, it's important to know that the village runs a municipal electric utility. Mm-hmm. So the village itself is in charge of managing its electricity. And they do collaborate with WPPI Cooperative, which is a rural electric, well, it's a cooperative organization based in Wisconsin that partners with a lot of rural electric cooperatives and small municipal utilities to help with buying electricity in bulk and managing the utilities, because we're talking about typically small organizations that don't have a lot of capacity themselves and need to purchase electricity and can do so much more cost effectively if they work together and purchase in bulk. And so WPPI helps with that, and was also a key partner in this community solar project. They had done community solar with a couple of the communities that they work with in Wisconsin in the past, and so had some experience and interest in doing it with more communities. But in reality, they had seen some problems with the first projects that they did in Wisconsin. They struggled to get enough community buy-in and support. People didn't buy the shares. And so they were pretty skeptical about whether we could do this in Lawrence. And that was another reason for really doing the social research and background and just kind of capacity building and working really grassroots, from the ground up.
Yep. Yep. Can you give us a little bit of a timeline of the project, when it started to when it was completed, and kind of the steps that you took in this process?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm going to remember the dates exactly. It's
Oh,
been a
you're
few
fine.
years. But, the first step was doing the technical feasibility analysis, which students in the alternative energy enterprise at Michigan Tech did that part of the study. And they did that. They probably took maybe the full academic year from when they very first started learning about the project until they wrote their technical report. And that was the first step. We didn't really start doing much else until we had that technical report, and we saw that it was feasible. You could produce enough power at a good enough economic return that it would make sense to do a project. And so from there, then the next year, I would say about the next 18 months, we did all the community engagement work and built the system. So, we started with key informant interviews with about 10 community leaders. And then based off of those, we got a sense for what people's interest levels and concerns were. And then we held a community meeting, which we advertised really widely. We held in the local high school cafeteria, and we invited all of the community organizations. We spread the word pretty widely, with ads on the radio and things like that. And just did a lot of public announcement to try to get people to show up. We offered food and childcare and tried to make it a fun event. We gave everybody who came a free LED light bulb, and we did a couple other door prizes. And at that event, we just did a short presentation about what community solar is. But then the bulk of it was really asking people to sit at small groups at tables, and we asked a series of questions which basically had them thinking through and talking among themselves about what they saw as some of the opportunities and some of the challenges, to talk about how interested they were or not and why, and whether the kinds of things that would make them more interested or less interested depending on how the program was designed. And so we did a lot of that real just conversation in small groups and then reporting out to the larger group. And that was a really important step in our process, I think, because it got a lot of people interested. We had about 70 people come to that meeting, which is a lot for a community of 2,000 people. And a lot of the people who did come were also like community leaders who went and told other people about it later. And doing the conversational style there, I think, was also really important because we got a sense for what people's what they were thinking and what they were worried about and what they saw as like key parts of the design that were going to be really important. And when I say design, I'm not talking about the technical design, but I'm talking more about what sometimes people call the soft side of the design. Like, how are you going to structure a program? How are you, like, what are the options for how you buy into it and how you get credits back? And who's allowed to participate and how many shares are you allowed to buy? And what happens if you decide you don't want your shares anymore? What if you move away? What if you die? All of these kinds of issues that come up, right? So that's where we really got a lot of feedback. And then from there, we designed a survey that went out to all of the utility customers with their electric bill, and we got really quite good response on that survey. And the survey just asked more questions, gave us a broader understanding across the community of how interested people were. almost every respondent said that the community should go forward and do this. I think it was like 92% of people said yes. And then we also asked people if they would buy a share and at what cost points. And that gave us a better sense of whether people would really buy into it, and how we should structure the costs.
And I'm curious, what kind of challenges or problems that people had with this community solar project? Did they stay consistent throughout, or like how were you able to mitigate them, or did they change over time into something else?
Yeah, I would say from the beginning, people were pretty interested and positive. Some of the biggest challenges that we dealt with, first was that there was a utility scale wind project that was proposed at the same time, just outside the village in the township area, that a lot of people had a lot of problems with. So there was a lot of community resistance to that wind project. And the resistance was for a variety of reasons, but there was some concern initially among people in the community that we might be somehow affiliated with the developer that wanted to do the wind project.
Yeah.
So we got just a lot of questions about, are you affiliated with those guys, or like, what's your interest here? And that was pretty easy to mitigate because we could just, we explained that this is really a village initiative that would be entirely owned by the village and serving the village customers. And so that helped a lot. The other challenges were more like just questions that people had about some of these things about what happens if I sell my house or if I decide to move away, just figuring out a lot of those details that people worried, well, if you don't have an out, then people wouldn't want to buy into it. So just getting that design in place. Another really key important thing in Lawrence especially, and in a lot of small rural communities, is affordability. We wanted to be really sure that this was not just something that wealthy people could afford to do, but that would be accessible across the community. There's a fairly large low-income population in Lawrence. So, I mean, I think it was like over 50% low to moderate income in the community. And so we wanted to make it easy to participate by reducing the upfront costs as much as possible. And that was something that we kind of already knew was going to be the case, but really became the case as we did all the community engagement.
And can you explain how the Lawns project is set up today? What is the end project here?
Yeah, so in the end, the village decided to move forward and build a system. Initially, they wanted to start really pretty small. They were thinking about building a 50 kilowatt system. Based on all the community engagement work that we did, they decided to double that size because there was so much support. But still, a 100 kilowatt system is pretty small. I mean, we're talking about enough power to power maybe somewhere between like 10 and 30 homes. But they structured the opportunities for purchasing a share so that there were 3 different options. So people could just choose to pay the full cost upfront, or we structured it so that you could just pay a percentage of the cost upfront and then have the remaining taken out of your electric bill every month for the next 10 years. So you're slowly paying it off. Or the third option was for no upfront money at all. And this was only available to customers that had a demonstrated financial need, low to moderate income households. And they didn't have to pay anything up front, but they pay on their bill again, but over the period of 25 years, which is the full life of the program. So once you buy a share, it's going to exist for 25 years, and you'll earn returns on however many shares you buy. So on your utility bill, you get a credit each month based on how much energy the system produced, and how much money they were able to sell that for on the market. So, if you bought everything up front, then you just get a credit every month. And if you are on one of those payment installment plans, then your monthly bill might be a total wash. So like on the 25-year plan, essentially we estimated that people were gonna be getting just a tiny bit more of a credit back each month than what they were paying in, but they didn't have to pay anything for it up front. We were also able to couple on that plan for the low to moderate income residents, to couple with energy efficiency programs. And that's something that we did in collaboration with Michigan Energy Options. And there, the households that signed up for a solar panel also got support for energy efficiency improvements in their homes. So they got like a home energy audit, and then they got credits toward making some of the improvements that the audit suggested were the most beneficial for their home, what was the most needed there. And so we really wanted to, that was something that we really wanted to try to make happen, that the community wanted to make happen, because they wanted to really help people reduce their bills long term and be more financially solvent. At the same time, use less energy, because really reducing consumption is what this is all about. If you want to be more sustainable, it's not about switching everything for like huge levels of consumption to solar, for instance, but instead there are a lot of things we can do to reduce our consumption first, and then we need to build less of the energy infrastructure to meet those needs.
And is Lance looking forward to the future? Do they have more projects in their horizon, or are there talks about other future projects?
Yeah, the one thing that I meant to say earlier that I forgot to say is that the project has been super successful in Lance. It sold out its shares before the project was even built, which is really rare on community solar projects. Like in Wisconsin, that's why the cooperative they work with was really kind of concerned about doing this, because they just could not sell the shares down there years later. But in Lance, it sold out before they even built it. And so they are thinking about possibilities for expanding it, but I don't know of anything that's like close on the horizon.
Just wanted to talk about, it seems like the key ingredient, what made this Lance project so successful, was just the democratic process and the community involvement. Based on your opinion and your work, if Beaver Island wanted to replicate something like this, what are the key elements that we need to add in to make this a successful project?
Yeah, I agree with you that that community engagement and doing it from the ground up, engaging with people, really made a huge difference. And there certainly were some people who were skeptical that we talked to when we did the survey, for instance. We sent it to everyone, but then we went door to door, and we didn't hit like every house in the village, but we got a lot of them. And we picked up the survey. And if they hadn't filled it out, we just gave them another copy, and we're like, here's another copy. If you could fill it out, we'll come back and pick it up in a couple hours, or you can mail it in to the village, or drop it off at the village. So we had a lot of interaction with people that way as well. And folks were skeptical, but we also ran into a lot of people that were like, I heard about this because my friend was telling me about it. She went to that community meeting and she thought this was a really great idea. And so, yeah, I want to learn more. So that kind of word of mouth and community engagement really seemed to make a difference. Another thing that I think was really useful in Lance was that one of the other challenges or reasons why people were skeptical was thinking about the snow and like whether we get a lot of sun here. I think, this was 5 years ago when we were doing this project. And I think especially at that time, in a lot of people's mind, when they thought about solar panels, they're thinking about like Texas or Arizona or like places that are super sunny all the time. And we just are not that up here in the UP, and especially in the Keweenaw. So people were concerned about whether it would even work well here or be worth it. But the village had, a little over a year prior, built a very small solar system at their water processing plant. So they pump water out of Lake Superior for the municipal water. And they installed, I think, 3 solar panels, so just a very small system out there to help power the pump. And they had done that with a grant, and they set up on the village website a link where anyone could click and see how much energy those panels were producing over time, and to look and calculate like how many trees you're saving, how much carbon you're reducing from being emitted. And so folks could look at that for themselves and see, okay, this is already in our village and it's working. And so we can see that it will work here. So I think that, starting small with a kind of like a demonstration project that people can see the impacts in a really tangible way in their own community is something that I think can be helpful. Reaching out to partners, because there are a lot of different partner organizations across Michigan that can really help make projects happen. So in Lawrence, it was really key to work with Michigan Energy Options. They were super helpful. Also, you've absolutely got to collaborate with the utility or figure out a way to work with them. And then there are other organizations, like Lawrence also had a grant that helped cover some of the initial cost of the system from MDARD, so the Michigan Department of Agriculture and Rural Development. There are also more now state programs that have just come online and are getting introduced very recently from Governor Whitmer's office to help support energy transition and sustainable energy and energy efficiency. So, collaborating as much as you can with those kind of organizations can be useful. Yeah, the alternative energy, another organization that you could think about reaching out to is, us at Michigan Tech. We do still have that alternative energy enterprise team, and they are always looking for projects to collaborate with communities to do more of like the technical and economic feasibility study. And so I would encourage you to reach out to that team.
I have. As a result, we will have a team of students from Michigan Tech come to Beaver Island in the fall to start doing a technical feasibility analysis for us for community solar. Thank you, Dr. Winkler, for all of your help and insight about the Lance Community Solar Project. With students working on a technical study for us, it seems like Beaver Island might have its own project on the horizon. Thank you so much for watching, and what are your thoughts on community solar?